Crooked River, Chapter 2. I'm real ashamed to say that after seeing that Indian, I bolted from the cabin and tore down the road in the rain. Likely looked as if I had gone and caught myself on fire as I ran toward the settlement with my petticoats and bonnet strings flying. I was so full of petrification, I never stopped for a minute to think why the Indian might be sitting there, and what all Lorenzo knew. And then I did the second wrong thing. I yelled for help. "Indians!" I shouted, and belted out every name I knew. Pa, Amos, Laura, the Hollies, even Ma, who was gone, and Grandpa Carver back in the East. It was as if demons had taken possession of my voice, and I was just shrieking out names on its own. I couldn't stop it. All of the men within earshot came running at the dreadful sound of it. My older brother Amos came tearing across the field where he had been fixing a fence. Mr. Evans and old Vinegar Bigger flew out of their houses to help me. Even my pa appeared, slopping down the muddy road with his rifle in his hand, and a half a dozen men from the settlement behind him. And that stopped me in my tracks. My pa. I stood there in the middle of the road with my teeth rattling away on their own, trying to make sense of what I was seeing and all the questions they were hollering at me. "You hurt? Where are the Chippewas? Were they the Chippewas? How many? What direction did they go? Where's Lorenzo? Did they carry him off? Speak up, girl." That last voice was my pa's. "I says, speak up," he roared, moving close enough to strike me if he had a reason to. "Stop standing there like the village idiot and shaming your pa. You tell the men exactly what you seen." Everyone got real quiet after that. The only sound was the rain splattering on the leaves around us. The men's eyes looked down at the ground because they all knew about my pa. He had a temper like a timber rattlesnake, and even grown men kept their distance when they saw his anger rising. Everyone called him Major Carver, but my pa wasn't the major of any army or of soldiers, just gave orders to our settlement and us Carvers, and that was miserable enough. "I seen an Indian, Pa," I whispered, trying to keep my voice from shattering to pieces. "There's an Indian hiding up in our loft." Pa's eyes narrowed. "One Indian?" he said sharply. "That's all you saw? One Indian?" I nodded. "Yes, sir." At this, one of the men gave a big snort of laughter, and some of the other men started to chuckle and exchange glances among themselves, as if they all knew something I didn't. I watched them rest the ends of their rifles on the ground as they didn't mind one bit, and I'd told them about Indians. What I'd told them about Indians. Even my serious brother Amos shook his head and broke into a little smile. I could feel a red flush creep into my face as I stood there with all the men laughing at me. "I ain't lying," I hollered in a voice that was choking up fast with tears. "You go back there. See, I ain't lying." I waved my arms in the direction of the house, but the men just kept on chuckling and rolling their eyes at every word I said. Vinegar Bigger, who was standing near me, patted my shoulder with his old hand. He leaned over and said in a loud whisper, "Course you ain't lying, girl. We know there's an Indian in your pa's house, 'cause we the ones who put him there." We the ones who put him there. This was the first I realized what my pa and the men had done. I imagine that my face went as white as a wall right then, and all I knew was that the men had gone across the Crooked River to see about a few Indians who were causing trouble. They hadn't breathed a word about what kind of trouble or why, and now they wanted me to understand that they had brought back one of those savages and put him in our own house. I didn't understand a thing. "Go on," my pa gestured to the men. "Go on, back to what you was doing. Sorry she brought you running. Real sorry for your trouble." My pa waited until the men were gone to start laying out all of his worst words on me. And after they left, his face went straight from being soft with laughter to hard with meanness. "I don't know what the devil got into you, Rebecca," he swore, "running and screaming for help like like you was being scalped? That ain't funny at all. You understand me?" His voice got louder. "You understand me? You made us carvers look like a bunch of fools." He spat out each word. "Bunch of fools." "Look at me," Pa's voice roared. My heart thudded in my chest, fearing what he might do. His hand grabbed a hold of my face, and his rough fingers dug into my cheeks. "I won't stand to look like a fool," he spat. "You ever do something like that again, and I'll take a razor's strop to you. You understand me?" I nodded. His fingers squeezed harder. "I'm your pa. You answer me with a yes, sir." He leaned over and hollered in my face, so close I could smell the sour tobacco on his breath. My pa's teeth were stained brown, and the corners of his mouth were yellowed like paper before it catches fire and burns. "Yes, sir," I whispered. "You ain't fit for the grease pot, you know that? You make me ashamed to have you as a daughter." He swore, and he gave me a hard push. "Get back to the house." All the way through the woods, through the rain falling in buckets around me, I thought about how purely I hated my pa.